All right, we should be live. Sorry for the delay on YouTube. That's what always messes me up. But there we go. We got so much to talk about, guys. So come on in. We are, today is April 8th, just 2 days before the first round of presidential elections in France. And oh my, are things heating up. I got a stack of stuff, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, right? I got an awesome stack of stuff on all things French election. This is do or die for the bullies in Brussels. If Marine Le Pen pulls this off, gang, I don't know. Hey, Juan, how you doing? Juan Francais, hello from Missouri. Good to see you guys. Come on in, slowly but surely. As we're all finishing off our week, we've got lots of stuff to talk about. It is do or die for the bullies in Brussels. If Marine Le Pen pulls this off, the globalist order is truly dead. Well, look, I mean, it's already dead. You know, I've been arguing that ever since the start of the Ukraine conflict. Vladimir killed globalism, but Le Pen would bury it, in effect. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you will stick with us, find out what's going on. You're going to love it. It is Live Stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your daily fake news antidote. So come on in to your Patriot Professor's Den. We're helping to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We are live here. There's so many things to be talking about with the upcoming presidential elections in France, especially against the backdrop of the disaster for the devils in Davos and the bullies in Brussels, in Hungary and Serbia, with Vucic winning re-election in Serbia, pro-Russian president there, Viktor Orban. My gosh, I'm getting all my names mixed up. Not good. Just starting on the live stream here. Viktor Orban in Hungary winning his 4th straight landslide victory. We're seeing a disaster for the EU and the demons at Davos, headed by Klaus Schwab, of course. So we're going to get into all of that and what this election for the French president means, with Marine Le Pen now officially taking over. She's been surging for the last couple of weeks after a massive gap of winning, advantage for Macron. I mean, I actually stopped reporting on it because it looked like Macron was going to win, and we'll talk at why that is. He actually stole the Nationalist Populist platform, and we're also going to find why that is his undoing. But now we're seeing it. We're seeing it in real time where Marine Le Pen is just surging like never before. Unfortunately, before we begin, I do have to share with you the fact that our super chats are down. They have been disabled by YouTube on this channel. And I'm not going to be able to take your questions today. And that does lead me to something I have to unfortunately say here at the outset. I love every single one of you. I see even just the hearts there. Thanks, Tristan. Oh, yeah, God bless you. God bless you so much in the name of Christ. Absolutely. Gang, I love you. I love this channel. And if you've been together with us for several years, as we've been focusing on the collapse of globalism, the rise of a new patriot traditionalist world, all I can tell you at this point is we are in desperate need of your help right now. And I'm just going to say that bluntly. You know, this is my George Bailey moment. And there's no other way of putting it. Those of you who have been with us for some time know that this is totally unprecedented. I've never done this before. But we have actually never needed your help more than we do right now. I can't get into the details, at least here. Obviously, it's related to our super chat. So that's just the tip of the iceberg, having been disabled. But if you have benefited from my work on this channel, which again, I love serving you on this channel. I love serving on YouTube. I love what this platform has done for us in bringing us together. But I have to implore you from the bottom of my heart, if you are a supporter of this channel and you haven't already done so, please, right now, you need to click on the link below and sign up on our email list. And that's where I'm going to be able to tell you exactly what's going on. What I can tell you here is that it's not good, and it does threaten the continuation of this channel. So what I need you to do is to please, right now, before you do anything else, click on that link below and subscribe to my email list. We've got hundreds, by God's grace, we've got hundreds of thousands of email subscribers, patriots just like you. And my email list is the main place that I get to communicate with you totally uncensored, absolutely directly, in case we are ever disconnected. So to put it bluntly, I need your help. Click on the link below. All you need to do is just give your email address, nothing else, so that I can share with you more about what's going on behind the scenes here, and we hope to share that with you later on today. So if you haven't already subscribed, subscribe to the email list. It is the single way that I can contact you directly if we ever get disrupted by platform disruption, and that's about all I can share with you now. So I hope to see you backstage, as it were, in the realm of email. All right, so let's dive right in, gang. If you do not know, the nation of France has their presidential election this Sunday, April 10th. It is the first round of elections when everybody and anybody can basically run. And then they have a runoff election 2 weeks later on April 24th, where the top two candidates from the first round face off. Now, the top two are already more or less a foregone conclusion. That, of course, is French President Emmanuel Macron on the one hand, the globalist, the friend of Brussels and the EU and Davos and the like. And his chief rival is, of course, the nationalist populist Marine Le Pen on the other, who is the greatest fear for the EU, the greatest fear for the demons at Davos. And up until just a couple of weeks ago, literally just 2-3 weeks ago, it looked like Macron was just going to run away with it. Macron, the globalist candidate, he's being pushed by the EU, he's being pushed by the World Economic Forum. It looked like he was a shoo-in. He was ahead by double digits in all the polls. Keep in mind, he beat Marine Le Pen back in 2017, the last time they had their elections. The French president served for 5 years. He beat her by 30 points. I mean, he trounced her. However, what pundits recognized a few weeks back as well is they recognized that there was a very pronounced surge by Marine Le Pen starting. She started bumping up in the polls. So each day she would go up 1 point, she'd go up 2 points, 3 points. But pundits dismissed it as an outlier, no big deal. Maybe Macron is just, maybe he's just has a misstep here or there along the way. No problem. Macron's going to run away with this. He's got this. Well. Looky what we got here. The latest Euractiv poll shows that in a head-to-head, this came, by the way, this is polling from April 4th to April 6th. In a head-to-head matchup, Marine Le Pen would beat Emmanuel Macron 50.5% to Macron's 49.5%. Now, granted, it is a statistical tie, but this is the first poll just days, literally 48 hours before the first round election, that shows Marine Le Pen actually ahead of Macron. And this surge by Le Pen shows no sign of stopping. They never dreamed, the bullies in Brussels never dreamed in their worst nightmares. I should say they never imagined, right, in their worst nightmares, that Le Pen would ever end up beating Macron head-to-head. She's beat him in first-round polling. We have first-round polling where she's getting like 25%. Macron's getting like 23 or 22%. And then all these other candidates are getting single digits, maybe 10%, something like that. But now we have Le Pen in a head-to-head matchup beating Macron, and that's a first. And this surge by Le Pen It shows no signs of stopping, gang. And as a result, Macron and the globalists are beginning to utterly and absolutely panic. Shall we have a little fun with the headlines? The headlines that are come across just in the last 48 hours or so since these polls have been coming out. Let's start with 538. Nate Silver's 538. Little American perspective here. Headline, Emmanuel Macron could indeed lose France's presidential election. They never dreamed, they never imagined in their worst nightmares that they would have a headline like that. New York Times, a reinvented Marine Le Pen threatens to upend French elections. Here's the byline. The far-right presidential candidate has, and by the way, she's not far-right. She's not far-right. All right, this is the new consensus. This is the new majority. But you know what I mean. The permanent political class only accepts center-right candidates. Anybody who doesn't push the globalist line is a far-rightist. All right, so, but the far-right presidential candidate has opened up about her personal life and tweaked her policies to gain sympathy and credibility among mainstream voters. And then just a key highlighted paragraph here. Ms. Le Pen has revamped her image since the last election 5 years ago. She has pragmatically abandoned certain ideas that had alienated mainstream voters. She has held on to others that certify her far-right credentials. This is what's known as de-diabolization. And she has shifted emphasis toward pocketbook issues. So de-diabolization is all about more or less de-demonizing your party because your party is in the mainstream media is being considered fringe, kooky, and the like. And so it's incumbent upon leaders and candidates of so-called third parties in Europe. So these parties are outside of the mainstream, the center-right, center-left party. It's incumbent upon them to show, no, we're actually the new mainstream. We're actually talking about issues that you care about that the permanent political classes, center-left and center-right, have totally and completely ignored. And so what the New York Times is getting at here is that Marine Le Pen has effectively done that. She has de-diabolized her party, National Rally. Here's another one within the same 24-hour period from the New York Times. Even before France votes, you're going to love this, even before France votes, the French right is the big winner. We're going to be talking about that today. This is key to why Macron both did so well up to a few weeks ago and is now doing so poorly. That's key. You want to write that down. This election, no matter what happens, is a win, a massive win for the French right, precisely because it's why Macron has done so well and why he's doing so poorly. So we're going to talk about how that paradox works itself out in relation to right-wing politics in France. The byline, the dominance of right-wing ideas in France's presidential election campaign follows years of cultural wars waged successfully by conservatives on television and social media and in the think tanks. And then a key takeaway paragraph. Despite a late surge by Jean-Luc Mélenchon, he's the left-leaning candidate. We'll talk a little bit about him today as well. Virtually the entire French campaign has been fought on the right and the far right. Say that again. Virtually the entire French campaign has been fought on the right and the far right. And I would put Macron in that camp, actually, whose candidates dominate the polls and whose themes and talking points, issues of national identity, immigration, and Islam have dominated the political debate. The far right has even become the champion of pocketbook issues, traditionally the left's turf. And that's key across the board. One of the reasons why the right has been able to win is because they've been able to pivot left on economic issues in a way that, while staying very conservative on cultural issues, in a way that the left has not been able to pivot rightward on culture issues. So the right has been able to pivot effectively left on economic issues in a way that the left has not been able to pivot right on cultural issues. So the balance that particularly European population has, when we see this, for example, the Law and Justice Party, Mateusz Morawiecki, the prime minister there, the Conservative Party there, certainly Viktor Orban in Hungary, in Yannick in Slovenia. The way what they've been doing is they've been pivoting. These are the Patriot parties. They've been pivoting left on economic issues because people are experiencing a lot of economic angst, most especially now. So they've been pivoting left in the sense that they are more proactive, and they want to give government programs and so forth to help people out, things that we would normally associate with, say, the center left, while at the same time being very, very conservative, very, France first, Hungary first, Poland first, America first on cultural issues like, anything. They're totally against anything woke. They want to strengthen the border, strengthen national sovereignty, push back against the bullies in Brussels, all that good stuff. Unfortunately, the left can't do that. The left is woke while still offering pretty much the same domestic economic issues. So why choose the candidate who agrees with another candidate on economic issues, but who's totally woke? Why would you go there? Why not go with the candidate who's going to make sure you and your family are taken care of, and at the same time are going to shut down the borders, assert national sovereignty, and assert the cultures, customs, and traditions and defend them that have made your nation what it is and have given it its own unique identity. So that's what they're arguing Marine Le Pen has been able to do very effectively. Here is the Washington Post. This is from today. Early this morning, no sign of anti-Putin bump in France as Macron risks losing to Le Pen. Again, they never, ever imagined in their most horrifying nightmares that they would have headlines like this. Across the pond, this is the ultra-left Guardian, the British Guardian. Get ready for a scary fortnight. I don't get to. What was that comedian who says, I like to schedule things 2 weeks from now because I like to use the term fortnight. But get ready for a scary fortnight in French politics. A Le Pen presidency really is a possibility. Oh no, the race for Élysée could end up as a horror story for anyone who cares about the well-being of France or Europe. Ha ha, losers. And then we've got the Financial Times. What if Le Pen wins? And the Financial Times is like the neocon center, as I've heard it put. What if Le Pen wins? What is going on here, gang? What on earth is happening? Keep in mind, literally just weeks ago, Macron had a double-digit lead. It really looked like Le Pen had blown this. Her campaign was in disarray, and it looked like Macron had adopted precisely the right issues. He pivoted to the right culturally, and that he was going to cruise to victory. Well, the key here is that headlines, that I think that the key here is that headline that said that the real victor in this election is the nationalist right, the French patriot movement that wants to return to national sovereignty and traditional French values. That's the reason why Macron was once so popular and why he's now losing. And how we put that paradox together, that's going to be what we'll develop for the rest of our video. Again, first, if a reminder, if you're just joining us, our super chats are down. They have been disabled by YouTube. And that is part of why I need your help right now more than ever. I'm calling this my George Bailey moment. I really, honestly need your help. If you've been following this channel for some time now, you know I've never done this before. This is a totally unprecedented situation, and it is seriously calling into question the future of this channel. I can't get into it, but if you would please right now, before you do anything else, go to the link below this video, click on it, and sign up on our email list. We've got hundreds of thousands of fellow patriots on that list. It is the main place to get uncensored communication directly from me in case we ever get disconnected. And all I can tell you now at this point is that this channel is going through a very serious crisis right now. So if you've benefited from what I do here in my daily reports and analysis, please, please, please click on the link below and sign up for our email list so I can tell you exactly what's really going on behind the scenes. Again, I love you all, gang, and this whole situation has made me appreciate what we have here more than ever. I can't thank you enough for your support during this very trying period. So, all right, so let's move on to the news. We're here for optimism, right? So what's going on here? In short, Macron is both benefiting from and getting hammered by this rightward turn among the French electorate. Macron is both benefiting from and getting hammered by this right-wing turn among the French electorate. So how does that work itself out? First and foremost, you may not know this, but over the last several months, Macron has intentionally morphed into a kind of France first nationalist populist, especially when it comes to dealing with Islam in France. France, over the last couple of years, has suffered a string of shockingly horrifying, deadly terrorist attacks with knife-wielding assailants cutting people's heads off. Perhaps the most shocking was the school teacher Samuel Paty. He was killed by an 18-year-old Muslim student of his who took issue with Paty. He was a teacher, and Paty showed derogatory cartoon pictures of the Prophet Muhammad as part of his lessons on the French value of free speech. And so the student cut his head off. And so needless to say, that shocked the French nation, as it should have. The French were absolutely outraged over this, and they demanded that the Macron government crack down against Muslim individuals and groups that have thus far failed to assimilate into French society and French values. And so perhaps the single most unlikely actor in all of Europe took the lead role in pushing back against Islam and defending European values, and that was none other than Emmanuel Macron, who himself up to that point was considered to be the darling of the corporatist globalist world order, the new leader, the de facto leader of the European Union project after, of course, Angela Merkel's tenure sunset out. But to the shock of globalists in Brussels and Davos and the like, Macron took this radically hardline stance against Islam in France. We've done several videos on it. Almost immediately after the murder, the beheading of Paty, the teacher, the Macron government began carrying out raids on Islamic groups. Many of those groups have since been disbanded. A number of their members have been rounded up and deported. The Macron government has been placing limits on Islamic homeschooling. They've begun taking control of religious funding of mosques. And Macron even doubled down on the French burqa ban. And if you could believe it, nearly 100 mosques, my latest count was 92. Nearly 100 mosques have been ordered closed by the French government in response to what authorities were calling an increase in Islamic radicalism. And as a result, how do you think Macron's poll numbers did? How do you think his poll numbers did? They shot up. They skyrocketed. And Le Pen basically saw the PATRIOT platform, the France first, secure borders, defend our customs and traditions, the France first PATRIOT platform of national rally totally usurped by this globalist banker. She couldn't believe it. And so his poll numbers shot up. Hers began to tank because what do you need her for when we already got a nationalist, populist, patriot president? But then something started to happen. And we started to notice it about 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And the more astute political pundits recognize this actually early on. They recognize, I've got actually an article here I'll share with you, very astute article from March of 2021. Okay, so over a year ago. They recognized that Macron could actually get sunk by this right-wing turn. Because on the one hand, Macron, in turning to the right on immigration and Islam, who is he actually disenfranchising? Who is he turning his back on? Well, he's turning his back on his political base, which is more or less the political left. The political left in France does not support Macron's right-wing turn. They don't support Macron's crackdown on Muslims. They don't support the burqa ban or the deportations. And it's not just immigration, it's economics as well. Remember, Macron, ironically, ran in 2017 as an economic centrist, but he has, since his election, governed more as a thoroughgoing neoliberal globalist. Macron's been acting according to France 24. France 24 actually pointed out that many people call him the president of the rich. It's a label dating from his decision early on in his presidency to cut wealth taxes. Others on the left have attacked his attempts to getting the French to actually have to work longer. We're talking literally more years of work in order to be eligible for a full pension. And the more populist leftists in France have been very, very critical of his crackdown on the anti-government Yellow Vest protesters a couple of years back. So Macron's right-wing turn, along with some economic disappointments, has effectively split the left. It's caused many on the political left to abandon him. And we have a number of polls that show that those who plan on voting for Jean-Luc Mélenchon in the first round, he's sort of a radical leftist candidate, but he's interesting. He's very, very anti-EU. He's very, very, he's steadfastly, adamantly opposed to staying out of the war with the Ukraine and Russia, and he's very anti-NATO in that sense. It's very interesting stuff, but many of his voters, sizable portion, if I recall, is at least 35% or something like that. I'm sorry, I don't have the figures in front of me. But they said they're not going to vote for either Macron or Le Pen in the runoff. Now, that's no skin off Le Pen, but Macron, that's huge. If he doesn't get the left to come out and vote for him in mass, he's toast. Right? So, and what we're already finding, a sizable portion of Jean-Luc Mélenchon's voters are going to sit the runoff election. They're going to sit it out. So Macron appears to have actually split the left. And yet, to make matters even worse, he appears to have united the right. And that's where this article comes in. It's a very, very good article from the EU Observer. And it's entitled, How Le Pen May Beat Macron. And there is this pundit basically argues that Macron's move to the right is evoking something inadvertently called issue ownership. Okay, and this is really interesting. We've talked about issue ownership over the years on this channel. Voters naturally associate certain parties with certain issues, right? So when I say, who do you associate the Republicans with versus who do you associate with the Democrats with, that's this kind of issue politics, issue ownership, it's technically referred to as. So voters naturally associate parties with particular issues. And the problem here is that when one party, in this case Macron and his En Marche party, when one party starts pushing an issue that the other party is associated with, right, the issue becomes more popular. And as a result, and this is the risk they're taking. As a result, the party that issue is most naturally identified with becomes more popular as well. So the irony here is that Macron, in cracking down on Islam in France, in effect ended up campaigning on behalf of Marine Le Pen and the National Rally, who've been calling on such a crackdown since their inception with Marine Le Pen's father in the late 1960s. He's the one who founded National Front back then. And what Macron seemed to do, again, however inadvertently, is he radically energized the French right. Because it's not just Marine Le Pen. Many of you have been following this election know the political journalist Eric Zemmour entered the presidential race a few months back. And he's even more right-wing than Le Pen. I mean, there are articles out there in the legacy media that, you know, they're like, Zemmour makes Le Pen look leftist by comparison. I think that's silly, but I mean, you get the idea. And so what Macron ended up doing, again, however inadvertently, is he ended up swinging all the political momentum over to the right in his own turn to the right. And so when all is said and done, politically speaking, what Macron has been doing in his governance is he has been splitting the left at the same time he's been uniting to the right. So those really high poll numbers he was getting were, as it turns out, they were somewhat illusionary. Yes, he was getting those numbers, but then when it came time to actually voting, people just basically said, well, thanks. I'm just going to go with the guys on the real right. Why do I want somebody who's artificial? Why do I want somebody who could turn on a dime like a Mitt Romney or something and so quickly end up being a leftist again? Macron, and then leftists, on the other hand, those who were not giving Macron very high numbers, are not going to be coming out to vote for him. So he split the left by his own rightward turn, and in turn has bolstered the concept of ownership politics that has inadvertently swung all the momentum to France's political right. So that is what I think is going on here. That's my analysis of what's happening in France. Now, all of that being said, we need to note that Le Pen still has a major uphill battle to win the presidency, okay? And remember, we're realists here, okay? And that's because the French electoral system is basically rigged against her, as it is more as all European systems are, outside of Hungary and Poland and so forth, where the politics has shifted so far to the right. But, I mean, you know, all the system in France is basically designed to keep populists out. If you don't know, presidential elections, particularly in France, are designed to keep what the political class considers the extremists out of office. It's this system that was set up by Charles de Gaulle and the Fifth Republic back in 1957. It's a system where the establishment intentionally puts in 2 or 3 centrists who vie for the top position in the runoff. And when one of the centrist moderates wins the first round, the other moderates and indeed the majority of the candidates coalesce around the winner and throw their support behind him. And in exchange, what they get is they get high-ranking positions in the upcoming administration. And with full establishment support, the moderate then goes on to the runoff election, tends to win by a rather healthy margin. And what this means is that any outsider from the so-called far right, like Marine Le Pen, really has no structural support for majority vote in France. Up to this point, conservatives, liberals, socialists, they all unite around the so-called centrist candidate, thereby who promises to represent one or, you know, some of their issues, and that thereby pushes the National Rally candidate, namely Marine Le Pen, who is all in on nationalist populism, tends to push her out at any possibility of winning. So that's what happened to her father back in 2002 when the mainstream conservative Jacques Chirac beat Le Pen's father, Jean-Marie Le Pen. I think he beat him by it was like 60 points or something, 80% to 20%, something like that. It's very similar to the way establishment neocons all became never-Trumpers in 2016, even in 2020, voting for Hillary Clinton and then for bumbling Biden. They were doing everything they can to keep the deplorables out of power. The problem, the problem here is that this system worked as long as the center right and the center left were still the so-called mainstream parties were still mainstream. As long as the Republicans and the Socialists in France were the two main parties, the system worked. That system has collapsed. And now it's third parties, right? Parties outside of the center left, center right that have taken over. Macron's party is one of them, and Marche. It's a so-called third party, a party outside of the center left or center right mainstream parties. And of course, Marine Le Pen's National Rally is a third party replacing the Republicans in France. So in many respects, all the viable candidates are in some sense outside this center left, center right consensus party. And so we'll see if the Fifth Republic system can hold up under those pressures. My guess is that it is eventually going to crack, but whether it's going to crack 2 weeks from now remains to be seen. But that said, gang, I mean, you saw the headlines. There's no question, as you can see, Macron is panicked. The bullies in Brussels are panicked. The demons of Davos are panicked. The legacy media is panicked. Le Pen is surging. She has taken the lead officially now, and it's going to be very, very exciting to see how this all plays out in the days ahead. All right, gang. So I'm sure, you know, I wish Super Chats were on so I can answer your questions, but they have been disabled by YouTube, and that's why I need you to click on the link below. Sign up on our email list. You'll be there with hundreds of thousands of other wonderful patriots, and it is the main place to get my uncensored communication directly in case we ever get cut off or disconnected on any of these platforms. And we are, unfortunately, right now in a very, very desperate situation where the line of communication is needed. That line of direct communication is needed now more than ever. So if you appreciate this channel, please make sure to click on that link below, sign up on our email list, and I'll contact you hopefully later on today to let you know exactly what's going on here behind the scenes. All right, gang. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you all soon. God bless.